Hello and welcome along to another CrowdProperty.com funding opportunity. And today we're going to be returning to the Meadow, Dunstable Road, Redbourne, St Albans. That's AL3 7PQ. And this is for phase 3. Now, CrowdProperty is a peer-to-peer lending platform designed to facilitate loans between private individuals and professional property businesses. CrowdProperty is authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority under permission number 723959. CrowdProperty is not covered by the Financial Services Compensation Scheme. There are risks with any loans you make, and just like all peer-to-peer lending, your capital is at risk. CrowdProperty endeavours to protect all lenders, and this is done by registering the legal first charge against the property project. This means that in the very unlikely event a borrower defaults on the loan, CrowdProperty will be able to take ownership of the project and manage it for the lenders. So the borrower on this project is Rob Dennis. The property is owned by Acre Invest Limited and the company number is 101-78325. The company has a website, acreinvest.com. Now, Rob isn't with us on this webinar, but we have got the developer team joining us in just a few moments. But you can see a little bit of Rob's background there on your screen. He was in financial services for many, many years, and he was integrally involved in real estate origination, advisory, development, and financing for residential and commercial schemes. And then Rob combined his personal property development experience with his previous professional career to then build out quality, affordable homes. We are joined though by the development team. First of all, we've got Mark, who's the main contractor here at Start Group. Morning, Mark. Tell us a little bit more about your background.
My background is construction, basically. I've been in construction all of my life since I left school at 16 years old. Had various jobs within the construction industry. I've probably built something like 150 million pounds worth of projects over my career.
And we're also joined by your son, who's Sam Webster, who also works on the site. Hi to you, Sam. Give us a little bit more of an intro to you, please.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Also construction is what I've been doing since I left school. Started off on site on the tools, worked my way up through the management of projects, and now I'm running much larger scale projects with Acre and with my father, building out quite a lot of units at the moment.
Now, you're both actively involved in this project. So this is phase 3 that will pay 8% interest. It's rolled up for 12 months and will add to the £1.71 million already provided towards the facility. Let's then look a little bit more about Meadow in Redbourne. And Sam, just talk us through the local area of Redbourne.
Yes, so Redbourne is quite a small village on the outskirts of St Albans, near Harpenden. Local village, lots of listed buildings in the area. Yeah, just a nice traditional village.
Now, the work has commenced on site after discharging the planning pre-commencement conditions with the site set up, the demolition and initial groundworks. Initial works have continued and the developers now expect to have completed all the groundworks in the next period with the superstructure underway. Planning permission has been granted by St Albans City and District Council. The planning references are 5/2018/1334 and the listed planning consent is 5/18/1374, where permission has been granted for the restoration and conversion of the existing barns to become 2 units, together with the construction of the grounds of a terrace of 3 new houses. Once the works are completed, the property will provide 5 dwellings with the anticipated gross development value of £5.3 million. The maximum loan term is 18 months. That was when the project started back in October 2019. This project is already first charge secured and the development is going to be sold once the project is finished. Here's the location plan then showing you where Meadow is. It's there just off the M1 in Redbourne, and you can see where that is in relation to St Albans. On the right hand side you can see the CrowdProperty flag pointing to Scout Farm, which is where this particular project is. So the location then, located on the northeastern edge of Redbourne, predominantly it's a residential area. The local amenities there include a co-op, there's other small retailers as well, and further amenities located to the east of Harpenden. There are several schools with close proximity to the properties, And the property is located 1 mile south of the Junction 9 M1 motorway, and Junction 8 is approximately 2 miles south via Hemel Hempstead. There's various historical monuments, including the Iron Age Hill Fort, Roman temples and churches, and Verulamum Park has ornamental lakes and the remains of the city's ancient Roman wall. I probably didn't say that in the right way, but you understand, you can read it on the screen as to what I'm talking about there. So lots of local interests here. Let's come back then to the project and just talk us through then what this proposed development is all about, please, Mark.
The site originally had a garden centre on it, which had, I guess, become bankrupt many years ago and had fallen into a huge state of disrepair. So originally the site had on it a lot of greenhouses and 2 old barns. The bigger of the barns, the main barn, unfortunately burnt down about probably 10 or 12 years ago, I believe. And so we inherited the site with a planning condition that the previous owner had got on it, which allows us to refurbish both of the barns and to build the 3 new houses. Now, the refurbishment of the barns fundamentally, because it was burnt down, means that we take it completely down and completely rebuild it. So in effect, all of the houses are new build houses, but on barn A, we retain the existing oak timber frame, which is to be refurbished and reconstructed. And then ultimately we end up with a nice small gated development in a very nice residential area.
Now, the total GDV of this project is £5.3 million. And of those projects, the large barn has already been sold, Mark.
It has indeed.
And I know there's another viewing happening today on some of the other barns. So still lots of local interest in this one. Let's come over to you next then, please, Sam, if we can. Because I know that the independent monitoring surveyor's inspection in early April, it was quite limited because of movement that was allowed around that time. But based on photographic evidence and video conference calls, what was it that they found out at that stage?
So in early April, we had cleared the site and we were just getting ready for the groundworks to start. We had removed the oak frame structure for barn A, and that had been taken down to the oak frame specialists workshop down in Bath. The oak frame was all dismantled, all cleaned up, and then we done quite a lot of work in reporting back to the planners, demonstrating how we could restore the burned timbers into the new oak frame. So that was the main chunk of work during April. And then whilst on site, we started the groundworks, and then we had another monitoring surveyor visit last week when he came and viewed all the groundworks completed.
Now, I've got some photos to show here. These are then the site photos from April, showing the site contamination treated and the groundworks well underway. That barn A, as you said, has been dismantled and is away now being restored. And you can see sort of evidence of fire damage in the bottom centre photo there, can't you?
Yes, yeah, the far left-hand photo is when we inherited the site. You can show scaffolding was propping up the burnt structure. And the far right-hand photo is where we removed the timbers and we labelled them all up on site against a drawing, so they would go back in the same places, ready for them to be transported down to the workshop down in Bath.
So here's photos then of that workshop.
You can see in those photos where we're having to splice in new timber repairs into the old structure. Those timbers will ultimately form part of the new frame, which has already been purchased, and that's actually sitting in the workshop as well. So that's the next phase of work for them to combine the 2 structures together.
Now, you said earlier that you've had another independent monitoring surveyor's inspection. That was what, the 7th of May, and this time they were able to visit the site. Just talk us through what they discussed.
Yes, so I met the monitoring surveyor on site personally. We walked around the site, showed him the groundworks to the houses, which were complete. The drainage to the houses were also complete, and we was just about to start the block and beam floors on the visit, which are now in as of today's date. We reduced level dug the barn and reduced level dug barn B, ready to pour the concrete.
And the good news is the independent monitoring surveyor advised that the construction works are still on budget, which is good. Here's some of the photos taken on that date with the works there to the terrace new build section well underway, as you can see there. Nice tidy site as well, which is always good to see. Here then are the architect's drawings. Just talk us through this, please, Mark.
This is the elevational drawing of the, in effect, 3 brand new houses, 3 additional houses that were allowed on the site alongside the 2 barn conversions. They linked detached is probably the best title for them. You'll see that there are 2 in effect blank areas on the elevational drawing, and they are 2 carports where you drive in either side of the middle house, and they both form 3 very nice 4-bedroom houses.
Okay, just talk us through what we can see here, Mark.
That's the section through the 3 houses that we were just talking about, so that you can see head heights, etc.
And then we've got some computer generated images here showing how it's going to look when it's finished. And obviously those terrace houses on the left-hand side there, and then the barn is the photo on the right. That's barn A. And they look quite stunning, don't they?
They will be absolutely beautiful.
And then moving on, this is then barn B, and then the bird's eye view of the whole site. Just talk us through this barn B as well, because it's slightly different layout, isn't it?
It is indeed. Barn B is much smaller than barn A. Barn A is quite large and is going to be quite impressive at the end of the day. Barn B is a much smaller barn, just 2 bedrooms in this one, but built in basically the same style and to the same level as finish as barn A. All of the properties are going to be finished to a very high standard, and we think creates a really nice, as I say, small gated community that people are going to enjoy living in.
And then we'll move inside then, the computer generated images of how they will look inside of both barn A and barn B, and very modern with the layout, aren't they?
Absolutely. We're trying to get this contrast between the old and the new, not trying to pretend that new elements installed are old. If it's a new element, it will appear absolutely as a brand new modern element. And we really like the contrast between that sitting against the older style of the oak beams, for instance.
So let's then move on to some case studies, and I've got a couple of case studies here to show. This is Pearman Court in Luton. Talk us through to make 88 apartments.
This is a project that we started about 18 months ago. It's very near completion now. We have had some larger delays on this project because of COVID-19 and the UK power networks being unable to install our new power supply to the building because of COVID-19. So that has caused some delay, but it's very close to completion. Probably you need another 12 weeks on site once UK power networks are released. It was a site that we bought some time ago with an existing planning consent for 88 apartments and 2 commercial units of approximately 4,000 square feet each. We then sought an additional planning consent on this for an additional floor, which gave us another 15 units, so 15 penthouses on the top. And we are well through the sales process on that. I think we've got about 40% of the apartments now sold. Again, finished to a very high standard, and they're going well.
Let's come on to case study 2. This is Oakley House in Luton. Talk us through this one.
Oakley House is a site that we bought without planning consent. It's an existing training facility, and we purchased without consent, and we have sought planning permission for the demolition of that existing building and the reconstruction of a mixed-use scheme with about 10,000 square feet of commercial office space and 22 apartments above. We're just finishing the planning consent process on that, discharge of conditions and the like, and are hoping to go into the ground probably in about 4 or 5 months' time.
And you expect to still complete that, the end of this year?
No, this one has been delayed as well because of COVID-19 issues and the amount of time it's taken to get some of the sort of legal elements out of the way to enable us to start.
So let's then come back to Maris Meadow that we're talking about on this particular project, phase 3 raise, where we're looking for £400,000, and it's a 5-phase raise. In total, that's £2.96 million. 1.71 million raised, and this will be utilised towards the purchase of the site and the initial works. Rick's verified the market value prior to the start on site at £2 million. and they've estimated the gross development value to be £5.3 million, with the estimated construction cost being £1,404,660. The initial drawdown was £1.26 million. That represented the initial loan to value of 70%. And lenders are receiving interest on this raise rolled up and paid at the exit at the rate of 8% per annum equivalent. The loan to GDV, excluding the rolled up interest, is 57.2%. And when you add in the interest, when it's rolled up, it's 60.8%. It's the maximum loan term of 18 months on this particular project, with it being a minimum loan of 6 months. And this phase of the loan is targeted to start on the 31st of May 2020. Remember, the exit strategy is to sell, and lenders are going to be getting 8% per annum. It's rolled up and paid at the end, and it's already been secured with the first charge security against the property. So thank you, Sam, and thank you, Mark, for explaining the project to us. The next steps then for us on this webinar is to make sure we understand this loan. We carry out our own due diligence both on the developers and on the project, and then decide how much you would like to lend. CrowdProperty.com is the place to be to pledge on launch. And then when you do successfully pledge, CrowdProperty will conduct the necessary anti-money laundering checks. Then you'll be invited to send your funds to your own online e-wallet, and you'll start earning interest on completion of the loan agreement. So thank you for watching this webinar. This is the phase 3 raise for £400,000 towards the total facility of 2.96 million. It's the Meadow, Dunstable Road, Redbourne, St Albans, AL3 7PQ. Thank you for watching this webinar. We look forward to you joining us again soon here for another funding opportunity at crowdproperty.com.